So they'll be calling you a radical. This is an important video. So first off, Weber State, I'm thrilled because it's the Energy Summit conference here, and you know, New Scale and the greenwashers all set up here for years, and you know me going at it with them, calling them out in their face. They're not here. The good activists, and Brian, he's the best, you know, they're here. So I want to talk about this because, you know, I've been going off on the uranium scam and make you one of the post-ignorance old original army who sent me this link. So I'm a old short seller. That's what I did for a living before they even called it short selling. Right there, the #1 school of business in the United States, I taught the short selling class. I taught the derivative, how to use puts and calls to short. I was original short seller. That's what I did for a living for years. Remember 6 years ago when I had you shorting Chicago Bridge and Iron? Saved by zero, the fix. Remember that? How come you get that stock crashed 75% in one day? I know guys that made 100-to-1 shots in the derivative markets on that. Remember that? Where is Chicago? Oh, there's zero. Arriva, arriva, the French bell out. You know, all these. Remember I had you shorting General Electric at 64? Well, it's at 100 something now, 8-for-1 reverse split. So the University of G. So I taught the derivatives class there when we were the #1 school of business in the United States. They don't even make the top 300 on the Prince Review, haven't for years. We were #1, it's unarguable. I taught that class for years. I was a student professor. So he sent me this. So one of the legendary short sellers, the big dogs, it got leaked out. They came forward and said their biggest short is uranium stocks. And they were asked why, and they said because it's a giant sham. Now, who's been saying that the whole time? Kevin Blanch. Now, I just did a video just a couple days ago on uranium 238 to 230, what a sham it is. We shut down all these nuclear reactors. You wouldn't know that by looking at the internet or all the propaganda out there that, oh, nuclear renaissance. Let's see, we shut down Sinanofri. Kevin Blanch and crew, Kathy Iwani, Gary Hedrick, Gene Stone, Ace Hoffman, Milo Reason. We've worked on that for years and years. We got to shut down. How about Dwayne Arnold? How about Oyster Creek? How about Indian Point? I won't stop there. We've shut down so many nuclear reactors, so how are they having a renaissance? Let's see, Germany shut them all down. 17, there's only 3 open, getting ready to shut down that. How about Japan shut down 54? I don't see no blackouts. But if you see the internet, Belgium shut theirs down. Everybody shut, and taxonomies today. So the head of, in Belgium, he just ripped nuclear. I mean, so these guys, look, I'm a legendary old short seller. I made a lot of money. So if you've ever read East of Eden, the bad son, which was really the good son, I started trading cattle futures at 14 years old in Ogden, Utah. I was a legendary, famous short seller back when they didn't even call it short. I saw the 2 girls, and it's like Ackerman. We're still, yay, we love it. No, I'm not talking Thomas. I'm talking about the hedge fund. You're still listening to that fool? How many billions did he lose to the pharmaceutical shammer? Just buy up companies and increase the prices. That piece of criminal derelict. Ackerman was in love with him, the hedge fund. He lost $4 billion on that. And there was 2 young women who were the legendary short sellers. You know, short selling's important. I mean, I was the king of it for years. If you don't believe me, play back the tape. Play back 6 years ago when I was telling you, buy puts, short the shit out of Chicago Bridge and Iron. They just went to zero. Remember just a few years ago, I'm telling you, short GE at the greatest Ponzi scheme in human history, Jim Cramer. You're still listening to Cramer. He should be. The CNBC, all those protests I did in front of CNBC, protesting GE, Jack Walsh, the pom-pom team. And you're still going to listen to Cramer. That guy, I mean, he was the Jack Welch. They were Jack Welch groupies. Maria Bartiromo, Joe Kernan, they were Jack Welch groupies. I mean, the worst performing stock, mega stock, maybe in Dow history. G. This is the University of G. E.O. Watt is the CEO. I taught that class here. We're the #1 school of business in the United States. I taught it. So I was teaching here when 9/11 happened. So the legendary finance professor Clyde Cooley passed away of brain encephalitis in 99, as we got our MBA program. We were the #1 school of business via the testing for 9 consecutive years. I taught here, I graduated here before I got blackballed. Via the testing, we used to beat Trump's school, Wharton, but we were actually taking classes. and didn't have somebody taking our tests for us, and it was vicious. I actually went to school with the heirs to the Japanese Royal Empire, Mikado and his sister. They were geniuses. By the way, they live in Argentina. I misspoke, said Brazil the other day. This school was vicious to get through. It was hardcore, and I taught that class, and we had lots of we had lots of international students all over the world. Here's a public university that's a public state university, this boutique gem, secret gem. Everybody around the world's flocking to it because it was, I mean, how do we beat private schools like Wharton and Harvard? Oh, we did. I mean, talk about a unique, and then I ran that program after Cooley died, and then Kyle Madsen got lung cancer and died. I will quote Kyle Madsen in 2001 when 9/11 happened. I'm teaching that class. I would teach students how to use puts and calls, the derivative marks, strides, straddles. I taught all the strategies in the normal. I taught that class. It's unarguable. I taught it. I have lots of Saudi kids in that class. Kyle Madsen, Kevin Blanche. Kevin. I was one of the first guys that identified they bought puts on the airline stocks. And that's what I did for a living. CIA interviewed me in there. They never gave me a job. Hell no. I wouldn't work for those dirtbags anyway. So, Kyle Madsen, Kevin, do you ever think maybe you taught them how? I says, it's possible. A lot of elite students for a lot of years. And I taught that class in the #1 school of business in the United States, unarguably in the testing. So he comes out and says, short the uranium stocks. Now, who's been saying that? I wish I was still a short seller. I miss it. But my money got wiped out. Remember right here on YouTube, I turned $3,000 into $800 and some thousand dollars right here. I was shorting the triple leverage on silver when it went to 50. I made it so much money on that. I was shorting the gold. You can play back the tape. And then I said, double down in the markets in 2011 when the stock market, everybody was buying gold and silver. I was shorting gold and silver. And then I says, go all in Tesla. If you're going all Apple, play back the tape, Your Honor. Perfect timing. I mean, just killing it. I had all those options on Apple. But what happened? Well, I got cancer and I was uninsured. I forked over my entire stock portfolio, which was almost $1 million getting the bone marrow transplant, and I've been really broke ever since. You know, I miss it so much. You know, I was deadly with the markets for years, made a lot of money, up, down. So he comes out and says, uranium stocks drop 11% in one day. Shit, it's a big sham. How is uranium having a renaissance when nuclear energy is just dying all over the world? You know how many nuclear reactors have been taken offline in this decade, including the Big Z? So there's news out on the Big Z. The guy that named it the Big Z. The 7th time. I know Gross. I talked to Gross in Vienna at the IAEA. I talked to him face to face when he got elected. I talked to Amano. Amano went to Fukushima. Remember Amano? And they said, oh, he didn't die of cancer. I was in Vienna when he died. Oh, he didn't die of cancer. Oh, yes, he did. Look it up. So he comes out today and says this is the 7th time. You know, the reactors are in shutdown. The 7th time, the power. Why do they have to have power? They have to keep the spent fuel pools cool, just like Diablo Canyon. These nuclear repositories that all these reactors have been built up in the United States, they have to have external energy. So they're being run by diesel generators, have been the 7th time. And he says it's a catastrophe waiting to happen, you think? And they're not going to tell us if something happens. What about Fukushima? This is the nuclear. I got blackballed for my anti-nuclear rhetoric. This is what is the CEO? He's from here. This is who built this university. Gee, and Utah Construction merged in 75. Yeah. So, I mean, no changes are permanent. So they came out and says, this is the big short seller. What's your #1 short? We're shorting uranium stocks. Why? Because it's a scam. Just like, this is my favorite one here recently. So a guy came to me and he says, you started screaming about NuScale at 13. It's at almost 16. Okay, so go buy it, I told him. This is what, about a year ago, he told me 16 such a buy a NuScale. I said, you better short it. Short it right now. Well, it's cut in half. It's 8. The IPO, which they propped up, was 10. It's a sham. Just like G. I had people shorting it at 64, 54, 34, 20. It went to 6. Now, who set that price? What's his name takes credit for that. I put that price target at 660. I put it at 0. Say buy zero, just like I did Chicago Bridge and Iron. So this is important. The big Z, what a nightmare, ticking time bomb. But what about Fukushima? You know, TikTok, Diablo Canyon, clock. Short anything that has anything to do with the nuclear industry. Short it. And I can tell you, because what I see here, this is the Intermountain. They always had all the greenwashers here. I mean, this was greenwashing you. There's no greenwashers in there today. There's actually real greens in there today. So we're making progress. So thank you for sending this to me. I didn't know. And, you know, I've been screaming. I just put up a video a couple days ago that Oliver Stone doesn't tell you the truth. Now, didn't he make Natural Born Killers? Didn't he make that movie? Well, I guess this is the sequel, Pro-Nuclear. He doesn't tell you about uranium. Uranium under there natural. He doesn't tell you how they turn it from 238 into 235. That's centrifuge and 97% byproduct. He doesn't tell you how they do that nasty process, create plutonium. So I'm thrilled, you know. So, as you know, I'm a legendary old short seller. I mean, I did it for years, and of course, it wasn't called short selling then. You know, I taught the class here. The #1 school bid's unarguable. Of course, they blackballed me because, so, as you know, I've been saying short those uranium stocks for a while now. Short them, short them. They're doing it. And there's a bunch of bubbled up shit you could be shorting right now. But the short selling investigative journalists that have merged, like, you know, went after Ackerman and his big pharma, those two girls in Lower Manhattan. I love those two girls. What great work they've done. I didn't have no funding. I used my own money. You know, so I didn't run a fund or whatever. I didn't, you know, when I was an old trader. I'll tell you how legendary of a trader I was in those days. The CBOE, Chicago Board of Options Exchange. I would call them, and they all knew my name. Oh, Mr. Blanche, how are you? I'm doing good. Could you write me some puts on Chicago Bridge and Iron? Maybe some June? You know, maybe 20% under the money. You know, the stock's trading at 60. Could you write them at 45? Strike, whatever. Oh, well, we'll talk to the traders and see. Every single time. Those derivatives were there the next day. That's how I knew Madoff was a sham. That's what I did for a living. I knew Madoff was a sham. He couldn't, because this is the strategy he said. He said, buy high dividend yield stocks and roll the put underneath. That's the strategy I was teaching. I'm like, well, there's only so many puts. Once you become so much bigger, so you have to stay small if you're using the derivatives market, because if there's only so many, if you keep buying them all up, you're going to put all the pressure on them. You know, so say buy zero. So, yeah, you keep going with this nuclear propaganda. Anything nuclear. Short anything, you know, anything that has to do with nuclear energy. Short it, short it. The EU taxonomy, they're not going to make it green. I can hear you tell you, he went off this yesterday in Belgium about it not being green. And these, so I'm thrilled. But I used to teach this class right here. I mean, I taught it, and of course, I've been blackballed. I got cancer, you know, the whole 9 yards. Split me open heart surgery. You know, I'd like to get back to San Diego, get my typo work done, but I just don't have enough money. You know, so anyway, I'm thrilled. Love the short sellers. They're important. You have to do a lot of work to be a good short seller. You have to be the investigative journalist because we have no, you know, CNBC. Remember when I used to stand at Times Square with my sign? PU is greater than GE, Fukushima. I used to make it on set. You know, they used to do live CNBC. Right there on set, and I would hold my sign. I used to make it on set all the time. Remember I was screaming, yelling at Flood Watch Rate CNBC? You go to ask them. They'll know me. That's how you do it, man. You call out the truth. And they called it, why are you shorting uranium stocks? Because they're a scam. Stay tuned. Oh, let's flip the can. God, you almost forgot to flip your can. Save by zero. Save. Yeah. I know a lot of people made a lot of money. Some kids from Berkeley, a kid came to me and he says, I talked my grandpa into selling his gold and silver and buying Tesla in 2011. You changed our whole world, our lives. Well, you could send me a tip. I was in the bone marrow transplant center fighting for my life. Of course, they're not going to send me nothing. Thank you, everybody supports historic work. Say by zero. The big Z. Running on diesel fuel, clean, green. Okay. Short them uranium. I love it. Keep short. Short them. They're so grotesquely overpriced. This propaganda machine. All the nuclear energy stocks are so grotesquely. How's that SMR stock working out for you, NuScale? Oh, I'm buying it at 14, 15. It's at 8 and can't even support its IPO price. So, say by zero. Keep shorting. Stay tuned.